Hello and welcome to this video on Hatz from Panda. Let's check out what's to come before we get into it. Now Hatz is, as I imagine you've guessed by now, a hi-hat module, percussion hi-hat module. We have a closed hi-hat side on the left, open hi-hat side on the right, some modulation and plenty of inputs to get dynamic and interesting patterns. The core of Hatz is either a white noise or a metallic cymbal-like noise that we can blend between on this control. This affects both the closed and open hat. The closed hat we can shape from a linear to an exponential shape, and this does affect the timing of the envelope used for that closed hat as well. It's quite nice to kind of fine tune the closed hat and it not just be a simple click. We have a filter for the closed hat side and a CV input for the closed hat side too. So you can trigger, take the sound out and CV filter your closed hi-hat sound. The open hi-hat sound has a decay control, the same linear to exponential control, just separate for the open hi-hat. Filter, again with CV, trigger and its own output. And much like classic drum machines and real drum kits or real hi-hats on hi-hat stands, these cut each other out. A closed hi-hat will cut off the open hi-hat sound. Have an accent input with an accent level, CV over decay for the open hi-hat, an external input with external level, so we use Hatz as a basic kind of synth voice glitchy back end to a voice with an oscillator later in the video, and we have a hold input too where we can input gates or moving voltages to affect the envelopes of the hats and bring in and kind of hold open this core noise source. So let's get stuck in. So we'll start with a bit of a sound exploration. I have plenty of modulation coming in, I'll pull this out shortly. Got triggers and accent, both outputs on the hats are panned hard left and right, close to the left, open to the right. There's this little bass drum. Simple enough sound just to kind of pin the pattern down. Let's just play around and just check out the sound of Hatz. We can actually replace this core for designing our own sounds. So I have this little Shuby module, again from Panda, a nice kind of unique noise source. Let's swap out the actual noise for this. So that's just a quick exploration, whistle-stop tour of a ton of different knob positions and sounds and replacing that core with a different noise source. So here's a beat with the hats much less modulated. However, the closed hi-hat does have an LFO going in. Let's take a listen for a second. I'll mute everything out. Remove the LFO. And I'm actually going to stop triggering and remove the closed hats for now as well. So the open hats, and notice this envelope shape. I just wanted to look at these in more kind of isolation and just really go through the controls. As we move over to linear, it tightens up, but it's kind of chunkier. More like an on and off, it feels like the sound hangs around much longer. And then as we take this over to exponential, got that slightly stronger transient and that nicer kind of falling release curve. This is really how I like to use these envelope shapes. Everything from a click to kind of full on noise from that open hat, blending from white to metallic noise. Filter. Let's get that closed hat triggering again. Filter on the closed hat. And again, no time control, but we do have the envelope shape. Which does allow you to nicely shape this closed hi-hat from kind of chunky clicks to slightly more ringy, kind of exponential release type hats. Let's get an LFO into the frequency. So here I'm using the Hatz as a noise introducing kind of back end to a synth voice. I have a saw wave into the external input. It's blending in with the noise through this filtering, VCAs, envelope control. And by turning down the external volume, you can hear the hat pattern. Filter being controlled by an envelope, that's the yellow trace on data there. Decay being controlled by a stepped sequence, that's the green trace on data there. And although it's a bit of a cable spaghetti, that's about all that's going on. The saw wave, as I said, coming into the external in, output, trigger from my sequence. Super simple. Swap out the noise source, say for the noise, the metallic noise. Filter that back and bring this saw wave in. Back to white noise. The metallic noise is a bit too dissonant over the oscillator for me. Can pull the modulation. So this is noise, external input, and just manual control. Decay. Filter. Let's get decay moving again. Envelope to frequency. It'd be quite interesting for leads, especially where that noise adds this kind of upper harmonics, it fills out the spectrum. Nice kind of grit to it. So here's quite a processed beat. There's lots of noise, distortion, kind of side chaining, crackling going on, and quite a bit of compression as well. Now we're listening to the closed hats. These are playing on most beats in the pattern, so they're actually cutting off this open hat, but occasionally, and with this filter up full, we will get a little burst of a nice bright open hi-hat sound. Move the filter on the closed hats just so you can hear that pattern. And you heard that little burst of the open hat. I find it nice in these kind of beats where you've got lots of textures and effects going on, to have kind of a muted back closed hat and a really bright open hat. And they're quite loud, so that you can hear them for the demo, of course. Let me back them back off to kind of where I'd sit them in the beat. And just this nice little open burst hi-hat, click a little rhythm in the background, just plays into the textures and the beats really well. So to finish on, we're going to look at creating more dynamic and simply interesting patterns, as well as a look at the hold input. We did modulate that in the very first patch in this video, but we'll go through it and what it actually does. So removing the accents. Here's two different trigger patterns. If I pull these outputs, that's the closed hat, that's the open hat. And to start with, I'm going to try and get a matched kind of sound from both the closed and the open sides. So they are playing alternate trigger patterns, but you can hear it largely sounds the same now. This is both hats mixed in mono, both playing the same pattern. I could start to filter them for more interest and more kind of dynamics between them. Starts to create a pattern, something a little bit more interesting. And to start with, I'll simply add the accent in. We can hear this da 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 da. This little accent just creeping in, and this is where the dynamics come into play, these volume differences or velocities, you might think of them as. Now at this point, I'll show you the hold input, and I'm just going to put in a voltage. You can put a gate in there, hold this noise open, sounds great. But just putting in a voltage, and I can turn that up. As soon as there's any positive voltage, you can hear a little bit of noise, but the envelopes have really tightened up too. It's quite an interactive input, and as I turn up this voltage going in, just using an offset module, to bring that noise in, and the filter on the closed hat affects the tone of the noise. Bringing that voltage down again. So there's your hold input, accent input, more dynamic, interesting patterns, as well as some beats, using it as a kind of fuzzy synth voice with that noise and external input blended. That's Hatz from Patching Panda. Check out the video for Punch, and also check out the little shoebeat noise module. I do use it in the Punch video as well as a noise source. It makes some interesting percussion. It's great glitchy noise-like tones. Hit like, subscribe, go support the work I do on patreon.com/DivKid. If you like the work I do, give me a thumbs up anyway. See you next time. Cheers.